Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here to talk about your path into medicine, starting right here at RPI. I am joined tonight by Elena from admissions. She's here to answer any admissions questions that you might have. Please drop them in the chat. We will also have time at the end for you to ask pre-health questions, so please feel free to drop those into the chat as well, and we will cover those at the end of the presentation. I am joined here tonight by three of my amazing students who are currently applying to medical school, Gina, Mohammed, and Jonathan. You will be hearing from them throughout the presentation tonight, and I will introduce them here in a moment as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can follow along with the presentation that we have tonight. And like I said, we are joined here tonight by Gina Editor, Mohammed Gay, and Jonathan Cho. Gina and Jonathan are currently juniors at RPI. They are both biomedical engineering pre-med students. And we also have Mohammed, who is one of our fantastic alums who graduated last year in the spring of 2024. He was a biochemistry and biophysics major, and he is also applying to medical school for this cycle as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about tonight are the four pillars of the medical school application that I like to refer to as the academic pillar, clinical, community service, and research pillars. Here at RPI, we provide day one support to anybody that would like to get into the healthcare field. Starting from day one at RPI, the pre-health advisement office is available to you for any healthcare field that you would like to pursue. And we help you in all four pillars of the medical school application process. And this service is available across all departments, all majors. So whether you are in engineering, whether you are in the School of Science, we even have some applicants from the School of Humanities. Anybody that would like to apply to medical school, my services are available to you starting with day one at RPI. So let's talk about that academic pillar first. Medical schools have a requirement of these core academic classes. They are required by most medical schools to have 1 year of biology with a lab, chemistry with a lab, organic chemistry with a lab, and physics with a lab. The courses that you see listed here in a little bit of the light red, these are the courses that we offer here at RPI to meet all of these requirements. The best thing about the School of Science is that any major that you have within the School of Science, you're going to get these classes. So they're embedded within your course framework. So regardless of what you decide to major in the School of Science, you will have these classes. All the biological sciences cover this. Now, in addition to the core courses, there are some medical schools, not many, but some, that also require 1 semester of these classes as well, in terms of psychology, sociology, molecular biochemistry, neurobiology, human physiology, ethics, and statistics. And what we have here in light red are the RPI courses that meet even these requirements. So even if you decide to go to a medical school that has additional course requirements, RPI has got you covered. And if there ever is a course that is required for a medical school that RPI does not offer, we have cross-registration available to you, in which if you find a school that you would like to take that class that RPI does not offer, RPI Registrar's Office will work directly with the Registrar's Office of that other school, cross-register for you, and you don't have to take care of that. They handle all of the registration, the scheduling, and the financial aspect for you. So any medical school that you would like to go to, RPI has got your back to make sure that you have the academic structure for you to go there. So now we're going to hear from our panelists in terms of their experiences of going through the RPI coursework, in terms of what coursework truly prepared them for applying to medical school. We'll hear from Gina first.
Hello, everyone. As Hope said earlier, I am a biomedical engineering major on the pre-medical track. And first and foremost, how RPI classes have prepared me for medical school is, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, the classes are not easy. You really got to work for your grades, you got to work for your A's. And I think kind of having that sort of practice and discipline and time management really prepares you for kind of the rigors that everyone kind of talks about with medical school. Being a biomedical engineering major specifically, our classes not only cover the basic sciences like biology and chemistry, but also really kind of enforce and really encourage that exploration to like how the human body and science kind of interact as a whole, and you really get to learn about the whole human body as a system. And I think that's really valuable and really interesting for me personally as I pursue medical school. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was if you guys haven't heard of it yet thus far, as part of your study at RPI, you have to pursue what's called an integrative pathway. And that's just a set of 3 classes that you have to take under like an umbrella of similar classes. And taking the integrative pathway has not only allowed me to take those recommended classes like psychology and sociology, which a lot of biomedical engineers don't typically take, but it's also allowed me to point myself in the direction to pursue a public health minor, which I think really kind of shows medical schools that I am committed to pursuing medical school and not just kind of being a biomedical engineer and going into the industry. So I think that kind of setup really has helped me prepare for medical school.
Thank you, Gina. Mohammed, you want to talk about your coursework, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Hope said, I'm Mohammed. I graduated last year. I majored in biochemistry and biophysics, so I wasn't an engineering major. But I think in general, kind of very similar to what Gina said, RPI is known to be a pretty rigorous and pretty difficult institution. I think I say that in sort of a good sense, not to like scare you away, but it's definitely a rigorous institution. And it sort of reinforces that reputation that RPI has as like a institution that prepares you really well, I think. And it's well known that med school is extremely difficult. And there's a lot of sort of course load that you have to manage at once, and you have to do well in those classes, obviously, if you want to, get into your desired residency and whatnot and succeed. And I think RPI just between the difficult course load in the classes and also other responsibilities, whether that's sports or clubs or clinical experience or any extracurricular activities. It pretty much essentially what Gina said, it forces you to master your time management skills, I think, and sort of your problem solving skills, prioritizing what's important, but also succeeding at the things that matter. I think RPI has put all of its students and alumni in a really good position, to be prepared for med school. And I think the second factor definitely is the foundational science courses that Hope sort of talked about earlier. Of course, a huge part of your application is going to be the MCAT. And I think the MCAT, it definitely covers an absurd amount of information, but it kind of covers all that information a mile wide and an inch deep. So it talks about a bunch or covers a bunch of different topics at somewhat of a surface level. And I think the foundational science courses at RPI are strong enough that you will cover essentially every single topic, at least in the science sections, that will be relevant to the MCAT. And I think that sort of foundation that RPI gives you is really helpful when you do eventually start studying for that test, just because there's so much other information you have to cover that might not be in those foundational courses. So I think it kind of puts you already a step ahead of the rest of the pack. I think a lot of other engineering or science institutions probably don't do that to the degree that RPI does.
Thank you, Mohammed. Jonathan, would you like to talk about your coursework, please?
Yeah, so pretty much what my other panelists said, very true. I think one thing I do want to highlight though is not only are our classes very rigorous and difficult, it's going to be difficult any college you go to, but I think specifically for RPI, you know, at least for me, in my experience, getting your first, 50 or 40 on a test in an exam as a high school student, it's kind of like shocking because, we're all pretty intelligent people. So being able to kind of manage that like expectation you have for yourself while also kind of building upon like your soft skills like time management. I think RPI for me has prepared me the most for med school because of the difficulty and rigor of all the classes.
Great. Thank you all very, very much. So now looking at those academic foundations, as all my panelists have said, RPI is very rigorous. But the great thing about that is the medical school admissions teams, they take that into consideration. 2 weeks ago, I attended a conference that had a slew of medical admissions team panelists there talking about the medical application process and what they are looking for, how they go through their procedures of examining and analyzing really with a fine-tooth comb through the medical school applications. And it was fascinating to hear from them that not only do they look at these applications very closely and multi-leveled, that they have multiple people looking at each application numerous times, that they look specifically at the institutions that their applicants are coming from. And there was one panelist that I heard from that said, and I quote, "Let's be honest, a 3.8 at one school is not as great as a 3.6 at another school." So while there is this suspicion of grade deflation, medical school admissions teams are also hyper aware of grade inflation. And they take that into account because what they are looking for are people that can withstand the rigors of medical school. And so they know that an easy GPA at one school is not going to prepare you for that rigor of medical school. So the rigor that my panelists have been speaking about at RPI prepares you and matches that medical school rigor as well. So if you come into RPI and you find yourself struggling a little bit with that academic rigor, RPI is aware of that and has multiple levels of support in place. The academic support at RPI is institution assigned and peer delivered by people and those who are experienced in that specific content. So for courses, there are teaching assistants that have office hours to your professor's office hours. There are also learning assistants which are live-in tutors within first and second year dorms. There's also iPersist mentors in calculus, chemistry, and physics courses. So you have layers and layers and layers of support. There's the Tri-Beta Biology Honor Society tutors and ALAC tutors, which is Advising and Learning Assistance Centers. So as you go through your initial coursework and you receive this support, if you really excel in these areas, then as you progress throughout your time at RPI, you can also step into these roles to provide that support to those that are coming up in the years after you as well. So now let's talk about that research pillar. The research experience at RPI is really stellar. RPI is ranked 9th in best undergraduate research by the Princeton Review. We are an R1 Carnegie designated leading research university. We have 30 plus research centers, an abundance of labs within each of those centers. And our RPI students have access to 1,000 plus hours of research experience. And the reason for that is because in each of these labs, they're not only run by professors, but also graduate students and postdoctoral students as well. RPI is really a beacon for research. And when you are integrated into these research experiences, that really shines on your medical school application. So now looking at the clinical experience, we are the capital of New York State. So we are just awash in medical opportunities for people interested in going into medical school. We have 4 hospitals, including Albany Medical Center, which is a level 1 trauma center. We also have St. Peter's Hospital, Samaritan Hospital, which is just a few blocks away from RPI. You could walk there. And we also have Ellis Hospital, which is just a little bit west of the capital region. We have 97 urgent care centers providing immediate care throughout the region, 1,000 plus primary care physicians at independent and group practices. There are training opportunities year-round in terms of EMT and lobotomy if you would like to pursue that route and get certified in a medical area. And we also have all 24 specialties recognized by the American Board of Medical Specialties in the capital region as well. So just tons and tons of clinical experiences available to you to build up those hours to really shine on your medical school application. In addition to the clinical experience and research, community service is also a huge part of the application. Many admissions teams, they say that this is the part that they look at the most in terms of longevity and commitment to your community, whatever that community might be to you, that you are able to commit yourself in service to an area for an extended period of time. So RPI has over 200 clubs and organizations where you can find a service-oriented avenue that it really interests you and speaks to the areas that you would like to serve. We also have the Alpha Epsilon Delta Pre-Health Honor Society, where there are many opportunities for community service through there. And we have the RPI Engineering Ambassadors, which is one of my favorite clubs. These are fantastic RPI students that go into local schools and teach the students there about different STEM areas. We also have local service opportunities off the campus as well. Every local chapter, every national service organization is represented in the Capital Region with a local chapter. So that includes American Red Cross, Habitat for Humanity, Meals on Wheels, Big Brothers Big Sisters, United Way, Boys and Girls Club of America, the Salvation Army, AmeriCorps, Make-A-Wish Foundation, Special Olympics, Ronald McDonald, House Charities, and Feeding America. So any area that really speaks to you in terms of service that you would like to give back to, there is a group that you can find yourself in and provide that service that you would like to give for an extended period of time. So there's another category that isn't talked about as much, but something that has become very prevalent in the medical school admissions teams of what they look for, and that comes down to teaching. Because if you think about it, a physician is a teacher with the patients that they have, teaching the patient what is going on in the body and also teaching them how to respond to it. So medical admissions teams are looking for that skill in their applicants. Are you able to teach another the knowledge that you have? Well, RPI has a tremendous amount of teaching opportunities. And again, that circles back to the academic support that we have in that it is institution designed, but it's peer delivered. So you can be an ALAC tutor. You can work in that center alongside the staff that we have there. You can also be a teaching assistant in a course, an iPersist mentor, a learning assistant, which is that live-in tutor, or you can provide your services as a local tutor to our local school districts as well. So now we're going to hear from our panelists in terms of the activities that they have been involved with during their time at RPI, and in the case of Mohammed, what he's been able to do both at RPI and since he's graduated. So let's hear from Gina first.
Yeah, so just to kind of touch upon some of the stuff that Hope has already mentioned, I've been in my research lab. I do my research in the chemical and biological engineering department at our biotechnology facility on campus. I've been there for coming up on a year now. So that's been a great experience for me. And because I've been there for about a year now, I'm not only just like an undergraduate research assistant, but I also get a certain amount of autonomy, and the other grad students kind of sort of treat me as a grad student as well in terms of sort of questioning, kind of designing experiments and stuff. So I think that's a very valuable experience to have. And RPI is very receptive to having undergraduate students in their labs. If anything, they love and embrace having and giving us that sort of opportunity to sort of participate in that sort of stuff. I'm an iPersist mentor for chemistry specifically. I'm going on my third year and will be a senior mentor this coming fall. So not only do I also mentor first year kids, but I'll also be kind of mentoring the mentors that are returning to us in the program this year. So that's also a great sort of community activity, but also a leadership experience if that's something you guys are interested in. I work as a patient care associate at Albany Medical Center, like Hope mentioned, the big level 1 trauma center that we have in the Capital Region. So that's also that level of discipline, kind of waking up at 5 a.m. to go to work if I work the morning shift, or coming back at midnight if I work the evening shift, and still going to class the next day. And outside of what I do for fun and kind of what I do for my own enrichment, we have plenty of clubs that are just there for your own hobbies, which I think is also very important to show that you have your own outlets. That isn't just, kind of, for lack of a better term, padding your resume. I was an athlete growing up my whole life. Basketball was my main sport, and I'm on the club women's basketball team. And we have I think a club team for almost every sport that you could imagine on campus. And I was also part of the Korean Student Association on our campus. I myself am Korean, so that was something I really wanted to be a part of on campus, and I founded a mentorship program that we created within that club.
Thank you, Gina. Mohammed, would you like to talk about your experiences on campus and the amazing work that you've been doing since?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first major sort of organization I got involved in when I got to RPI was RPI Ambulance, which is, I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but it's a really cool on-campus EMS organization, completely run by students. And you essentially provide, we have an ambulance and a fly car, we provide emergency medical services to the campus. And ever since COVID, also the surrounding community as sort of mutual aid for local fire departments and things like that. And through that organization, I actually was pointed in the direction of an EMT course, which is probably one of the best decisions I ever made in life. And I sort of, it was a bit of a lighter semester, thankfully, so I was able to do night classes at the EMS station, like a county over. And then I eventually got my state certification and took the state exam. Uh, January, it would have been January 2022 around. I started actually working for a local EMS agency in the capital region. And it was a hybrid agency, which was really great. So like 60% of our calls were sort of civil service 911 calls. The other 40% were like high acuity and facility transport. So I got to get really good exposure to patient care, sort of in different aspects. And I think that was probably the biggest like sort of clinical exposure I had throughout my time at RPI. And it was honestly also the catalyst for a ton of other opportunities because it was such like a well-structured agency and there were so many resources within that EMS agency that I was eventually able to sort of get to know the medical director, who was a local emergency medicine physician, and a few of the trauma surgeons at the same hospital that Gina was talking about, medical center, which is also an amazing resource. And I was able to shadow a bunch of those physicians and work with them. And I actually eventually ended up doing my sort of custom designed senior research project that was for credit. I did it under the supervision of the chief of trauma surgery at Albany because it was a project I'd sort of been working on for a few years. So he gave me the idea to just do it for credit, to sort of close out my senior year. And I actually did that, and we essentially finished that research for the most part. And there's an abstract out, a published abstract, and we're continuing the sort of back end of that research to hopefully get it published in a journal. And a lot of those physicians I met are also writing some of my recommendations. I think RPI Ambulance was definitely a great sort of stepping stone for a bunch of those different resources and everything. And I was able to get clinical hours, get patient exposure, do some shadowing, do plenty of research just by sort of using those connections and meeting new people and things like that. And I guess sort of outside of the clinical stuff, I was also part of the African Students Association, which I was secretary 1 year and vice president another year. And that sort of, just like Gina said, sort of non-resume padding activities. You have to show that you sort of have other interests, other things, other clubs that you're involved in that may not be directly related to medicine, just to show that you're good at research, or sorry, good at leadership, things like that. And after I left RPI, or after I graduated, I spent a few months in the Capital District region, still working full time as an EMT. And then late September of last year, I moved to Baltimore, Maryland, where I now work in clinical research, and it's specifically sort of trauma and critical care clinical research. I think that was definitely a field that I was super interested in. I think the clinical experiences that I had at RPI and at the MSc in the area, which a lot of RPI students do end up working for throughout their time in RPI, that sort of helped point me in the direction of that field of medicine, the emergency medicine, trauma critical care field. And that's what my senior research project was about. And that's the field I currently work in, doing clinical research and interventional trials and things like that. So I guess sort of summarily, there's a bunch of resources out here. I mean, the hospital that Hope was talking about, Samaritan, I'd argue it's even on campus. There's some dorms that are further from classes than Samaritan is. So there's plenty of shadowing opportunities there. So I think it's really up to you what you make of it. Sort of like the mentoring program. It's RPI will point you in the right direction, but it's up to you to make that move. And there's an endless amount of opportunities there, which I think is huge. So.
Thank you, Mohammed. It was wonderful. Thanks. Jonathan, you want to talk about your experiences?
Yeah, I would love to. It might take a while, but I'll see if I could do it as quickly as possible. So the first thing I did when I came to RPI was I applied for a job as an emergency department tech. So currently I work in the pediatric trauma rooms where I help run traumas and assist nurses and do as much as I can without like a nursing degree or higher degree. And the reason why I think RPI enabled me to be in the position that I'm in right now is the one thing that's very interesting about Albany Med is that it's a teaching hospital. So a lot of people come in and they learn under residents, med students. So there's a bunch of students coming in and out, and they actually enjoy bringing in a lot of students. And you don't really see that in other hospitals. Not many hospitals are teaching hospitals. So it might be harder to try to get a job without any clinical experience or like not having any background and just an interest. Teaching hospitals would be more interested in taking those students than actual hospitals. I persist as well. I'm going into my second year this coming year, where we just help tutor and help adjust freshman life with the rigor of the classes in chemistry. I'm part of our Albany Med ED Dream Team, where we basically go and we serve our community by trying to inspire the underprivileged communities, kind of giving them a taste of what emergency medicine is like, what doctors do, what physician assistants do, what nurses do, what techs do, just so they can be inspired to come into the field. I also do research at CBIS, where our main goal is to upcycle plastics. I was a resident advisor. That was just something I kind of did for fun. I enjoyed like talking to people and networking. So that was something that I did in my free time. I also was the president of the Korean Student Association, and I was the president, and then I was the social media manager. I was also an EMT. I did do RPIA. RPIA is a great program. I would recommend that if you are someone right now interested in getting a kickstart with clinical hours and trying to take advantage of that, I would recommend going to like your town's volunteer ambulance corps and applying there. And usually they kind of comp the class, which is really nice. Just so like when you get into college that you already have your foot in the door with clinical, so you don't have to try to do your EMT certification classes and do college classes at the same time. I was a D3 swimmer. Now I do club swimming, and I think that's it.
Great. Thank you all so much. So now we're going to get into the actual pulling together of all of this experience that you have had from all of these different pillars of the academic, the research, the clinical, the teaching, everything together. And you have to express that. And I feel that this is what I am really proud of about my role in terms of what I can offer to you in the pre-health advisement office. And that is the application writing. There are so many components to the medical school application that center around writing. There is the work and activity section where you talk about 15 experiences that you have had, up to 15. A good strong application has between 10 and 12. And you have to write about your experience in 700 characters or less for each experience. And then from those 15, you have to select 3 that have been the most meaningful to you in terms of your path into medicine. And for each of those meaningful experiences, you have an additional 1325 characters to talk about those most meaningful experiences. And then you have the personal statement, which is 5,300 characters. And there's another component on here that I should have put in here as well, and that is the secondary essays. So those are the college-specific essays that they expect you to write. So you can see that it is an abundance of writing that you have to do. My background as a pre-health advisor, I had 3 years of publishing experience before I became an English teacher. And I had 18 years of composition experience at the high school, undergrad, and graduate level. I have 7 years experience directing teacher preparation programs of people that are about to become English teachers. So I was an English teacher myself. I trained others who were getting into English teaching. And now I am finishing up my PhD in the rhetoric of health and medicine. I know that sounds like a great big turn, but this actually began during the pandemic. I became really interested from a writing standpoint of how medicine was being written about and communicated rhetorically, decided to pursue my PhD in this area, and now here I am. So all of the writing that you need to do for the medical school application, I am able to help you on. And I am a stickler and work with you with a fine-tooth comb going through your writing, making sure that it is perfect before you hit submit on that application. So we also have letters of evaluation talking about all of those experiences that you have had across those 4 pillars. When you submit your application to different medical schools, they have limits on how many letters you can submit. Some it's 3 letters of recommendation, some it's 4 letters of recommendation, but across all of those limits that the medical schools place upon the letters of recommendation, they do have this high preference for what is referred to as the pre-health committee letter. So the pre-health committee letter is written by a pre-health committee at an institution. It is headed up by a pre-health advisor and then a panel of faculty that can speak to the strengths of the applicant applying to medical school. Now, institutions used to offer this letter across the board, but because of a limit of resources, not as many schools are able to offer this any longer. Pre-health advisors have their attention divided. They're professors, they're working in the career center, they just have other things on their plate. The great thing about RPI is that this is all I do. I am a pre-health advisor and that is my sole focus. My panel of on the pre-health committee, I am working with 8 faculty and staff. So there's 8 committee members that you have representing you as you are applying to medical school with one unified letter. Now that one unified letter that we write is joined by all of the other letters of recommendation that you receive. So let's say that you have 5 or 6 people that you have come across through your research experience, academic experience, clinical experience that would like to write you letters of recommendation. Those letters are then submitted to us. I combine it with the letter that we write for you. And when that is submitted to your medical school application, it counts as one letter. So you can see that we are able to work flexibly within the limits that the medical schools have. So you are able to have not just 3 or 4 people writing for you, but one solid committee in addition to the other letters of recommendation that you receive. So you have 100% institutional support, stamp of approval from RPI when you are applying for medical school. In addition to the letter, the pre-health committee also offers feedback on all aspects of your application, from your personal statement to your work and activities to your research experience, your clinical experience. We provide you feedback on that. In addition, we also do practice interviews with you so that we can work with you on your interviewing skills for the medical school interview. And we provide you feedback on those skills for you to work on. So it is just a well-rounded machine of support in going through the medical school application process. So as far as that interview goes, you have, in addition to me and the pre-health committee, professionals on RPI campus that are experienced in the very specific nature of medical school interviews. So there are traditional interviews and then there are the MMI interviews. So MMI stands for multiple mini interviews. So some medical schools still go the traditional route where it is the medical school applicant with one other person, but then there are some medical schools that do the MMI, which is a number of stations that are just a few minutes each. It cuts down on bias. It allows multiple people to weigh in on how the applicant is in terms of the interview skill experience. The Career Professional Center on campus, the Center for Career and Professional Development, in addition to my services as well, can prepare applicants for both the traditional and the MMI experience. So the pre-health advisor practice is unlimited. You can meet with me as many times as you want, practice traditional, practice MMI as many times as you want. You can meet with the Career Center as many times as you want. And then again, you have the pre-health committee practice as well. So here are some additional pre-health benefits that we haven't talked about in the previous slides. Number one, the dedicated pre-health advisor. Like I said, this is all that I do. I am not divided between any other roles like other institutions have with their pre-health advisor. The second benefit, pre-health advisement meetings are available in person or virtual any day or time. Because this is all that I do, my schedule is yours. What's great about it, the way that I have my meeting schedule set up, is that you have access to my calendar. So anytime that you want to set a meeting with me, you can go right in, see when I'm available, pick the time that works for you, and you can step right on in. Next Monday, I've got 9 meetings scheduled of people that want to meet with me, and they just scheduled all of it themselves. So I'm available for you. The third benefit, there are weekly newsletters that I put out, and these letters include the gamut of things that you should know for applying to medical school, opportunities that come into me from all across the country in terms of clinical experiences, different webinars that organizations are putting out, medical schools that are doing open houses, programs that are available to you, summer opportunities, internship opportunities, research opportunities. I include all of these in the newsletters so that you are aware of the things that are going on. And then number 4, those local, national, and international pre-health opportunities because of the connections that I have made throughout my time in this office. So now we're going to hear from our panelists one last time to talk about how pre-health advisement has helped them, how the pre-health committee has helped them in feeling prepared to apply for medical school. So Gina, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'd just like to say of those 9 meetings, I am definitely one of yours that you have on Monday, which kind of just goes to show how hope is really there for us. And I think the committee as a whole, the great benefit of having the committee for us is that it really feels like that someone has our backs and throughout this process, especially, I know I don't speak for myself and I'm not the only one in this position, but being the first person in my family to try and pursue medical school, I don't come from a family of doctors. I don't even have a cousin or an aunt or anyone that's a physician. So really knowing that not only Hope, but the committee and all the other 8 faculty, wonderful faculty that are on our committee really are there for us to give us feedback to help not only help curate our application, but also just help our morale and just kind of keep our head in the game and keep us motivated in those hard times where we get kind of caught up in the little specifics of our application. We have these people here rooting for us and really that have our backs. And kind of to elaborate on that, just there's so many things part of that go into your application, not just your GPA and your MCAT, which are kind of your academics, but also you have to write about and really sell yourself as an applicant, right? That's kind of the whole purpose of creating your whole holistic application and having when it comes to like your MCAT and your GPA, that's kind of like on us, right? Like that's the only thing that can really, only person that can really affect and really raise those grades and really keep those high ourselves. But when it comes to writing our essay, our personal statement, our activities, and when it comes time for it, our secondaries, knowing that we have, and our interviews as well, getting feedback on that, like knowing that we have people that we can reach out to for feedback and for ideas, not even just feedback, but brainstorming too. Kind of going through your resume, your activities, and sense, trying to pick out like what your story is as an applicant. Having again Hope in the committee there is really encouraging and really helpful throughout this whole process.
Thank you, Gina. I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Would you like to tell us about how the pre-health advisement office and the committee has helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of like Gina said, stealing a lot of her points, but kind of like Gina said, the committee definitely cares a lot about us. And like you said, Hope, this is your main position, this is your sole position. You're here strictly to help sort of pre-health undergrads pursue whatever avenues in healthcare they want to do. And correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, the 7 faculty members who are actually on the committee, it's sort of a voluntary process. They weren't forced to be on that committee. Those faculty chose to be on that committee because they genuinely care about RPI students and they want to see those students who want to pursue careers in healthcare succeed and want to do what they can to help them succeed. And to be quite frank, if assuming you are a science major when you come here, a lot of those faculty might actually be some of your teachers throughout your time here. So you will have sort of deeper relationships with them aside from just the interactions you have on the committee. Both of the the both the faculty members in my mock interview were both professors who I had. So I think there's definitely that aspect. They sort of see you in a longitudinal perspective, I think, which is really important. And I also, the medical school admission process and application process is so unpredictable and so dynamic, regardless of where you are a student at and regardless of what you do. There's so many factors that go into it, and they look at your application from a holistic perspective, which is a great thing. But I think that also leads to such a wide spectrum of advice you might get from various sources. It's so easy to follow like a rabbit hole on Reddit or Google or something saying do this, do that, when you don't really know the other aspects. I'm sure my fellow panelists have been in some of those rabbit holes throughout this process. But I think the committee, because it's tailored to us as RPI students and RPI alumni, they take a very close look at your specific application and your specific circumstances, and tailor their advice for your situation. I think, which is really, really important to sort of drown out the noise, some of it, which is bad noise, to really put your best foot forward because they know you relatively well. They know you really well. It's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of faculty members whose classes you were in, and obviously a full-time hope, our full-time advisor, who's literally her job is to help us succeed. I think that's definitely unique from a lot of institutions. So I value it. I value the committee's help. This is actually technically my second time in the committee. I never formally applied the last time I did it. I realized at the last moment that I was gonna wait till the next cycle, so I went through a lot of the same stuff with the previous committee, but it was equally valuable both times. I think a second look at your application could never hurt. So
Thank you very much.
yeah.
Jonathan, management office helped you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what both of the other panelists said. Like, you're here to help us, and it's really shown through these like one-on-one meetings. And it's so easy to just look at the numbers and be like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. Or like, there was something online where I need 20,000 clinical hours to even be considered being an applicant. Um, and I think just having this team behind us where they can sit down and be like, it's not really like that. But we want to try our best to do this, or kind of steer you in the right direction where you need to be, I think is probably one of the most valuable things, especially like in a world where it feels like everything's against you, to have people there in your corner to support you. And, RPI is not the biggest school. So I think that's one thing I take very, like a lot of pride in. Like Hope knows all of our names. Um, at a bigger school, you're probably just a number or another statistic, another notch in their belt. Here at RPI, I truly feel like not only the pre-health committee, but all of the staff, they will know you. Like I know I had a class my freshman year. I'm a junior, and that teacher, I've never taken another class with him. He still like asks me how I'm doing, how are my classes, what are my plans for the future. And I think like Hope does a great job at interacting with us, making sure that we're heard, making sure that we're given the right information. And if there's a question that she doesn't really know about it, like doesn't really have the answer at the moment, she'll always be able to follow up with another email, giving us the right information, you know, just so we're not like led astray from stuff on Google and Reddit.
Thank you all very, very much. It's such an honor and pleasure to be working with you guys, truly. So now we're going to move into the Q&A. If you would like to ask any questions of me as the pre-health advisor, or of any of our panelists here, please come off mute if you would like to, or drop a question into the chat. Totally up to you. I know it can be nerve-wracking being the first person to ask a question, but please don't be shy. Well, maybe this means that we answered all of your questions that you came in here with tonight. For that, I'm really happy that we were able to provide the information that you were looking for. We'll absolutely stay on in case there's people that would like to linger and ask any questions. But if not,
Oh, we're
please.
getting questions in the chat, Hope.
Oh, there we
You
go.
opened the floodgate. I'm like, I know these kids have the most questions out of everyone we ever see. I knew it would come. Oh, here they come. A third one.
Okay. So the first question, do you know approximately how many students are in the pre-med track? I do know that actually. It's part of my job to track that. So for this particular cycle, I have 25 people who are applying for this current cycle, and I have 4 people who were initially going to apply last cycle, but then came in and decided to apply for this cycle. So I have about 30 that are applying for this cycle. But then I have students that are in each year from freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, who aren't applying this cycle that I'm also working with. And for each of those years, I have about 20. So I'm working with about 100 students at any given time, which I'm used to. Again, as an English teacher, I had 180 students when I used to teach, so I'm totally accustomed to that. So that's how many people we have in a current cycle and across all cycles. Do any clubs work with MCAT prep? I'm pretty sure that the Alpha Epsilon Delta group does some MCAT prep. So I see Jonathan and Gina nodding their heads. Do you guys want to chat about that at all?
Yeah, so Alpha Epsilon Data is kind of like our pre-med chapter. You can apply to it, I believe, your sophomore year. You need to have like a certain GPA requirement. And essentially, it's kind of like a gathering for pre-meds, kind of like being able to share resources, discuss what we have. Most recently, there was a opportunity where we were able to go shadow a ED doc, and that was made open to all AED members. And then every Sunday, they hold MCAT reviews. So like for certain sections, I believe there's another group that also does MCAT prep, or is it just AED?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that it's only AED in terms of clubs. But there might be another one. The Biological Honor Society might do some.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. I thought it was the biological. I think they're not as consistent, but I do know AED does every week, or they try to do it every week, depending on like who's available from the group.
Yes. Next question, what is the acceptance rate for RPI grads getting into medical school? So let's talk national averages first. The highest GPA you can get is a 4.0, and the highest grade that you can get on the MCAT is a 528. So of those, so the best of the best in the country, only 60% get into medical school. Now, people are often surprised by this, but there's only so many seats available for people that want to go into medical school. So even the best of the best don't always get in. At RPI, across all grades in terms of GPA and across all scores in terms of the MCAT, 70% of our students are accepted into medical school. I think that the biggest reason for this is because of the rigor of our coursework. And again, our students are just well prepared, and medical schools know this. So we beat out across all of our GPA, across all of our MCAT scores, we beat out the national average of the best of the best. So really, really proud of that. What about DAP prep and dental school process? Yes, we do offer dental school process. Basically every single healthcare field, we offer support in terms of my office. So it's not just medical school, it's DAT, it's veterinarian, it is physician's assistants, it's nursing. I am available to everybody and anybody on campus that is interested in any healthcare field. So got you covered even for dental school. Aside from Albany Med School, what med schools do RPI grads get into? This question is always interesting to me because I think that people who haven't gone through the process yet aren't fully aware of just how personal it is, and that the schools that people choose to apply to, they have really personal reasons for choosing that. Some people come to Albany, fall in love with the area, and they want to stay put. But for the most part, people want to go to a geographic area that they are drawn to for one reason or another. Most of the time it's home. They want to go to medical school at home. Then I have other people that want to go further away. They did their undergrad here in New York, so they want to try something completely different. But the bottom line is that it's always a personal decision. So there's really no rhyme or reason to the medical schools that our students apply to and get into. So it's really all over the country of where they apply. Mohammed, Jonathan, or Gina, do you want to talk about some of the schools that you are interested in and have on your short list?
Or
Yeah.
go ahead, Gina.
No, you're good. I think just to
Okay.
kind of elaborate on what Hope was saying about wanting to stay close to home. I'm not from the New York area at all. I'm from Northern Virginia, just outside of DC. I usually tell people I'm just from DC. But so my top schools are Georgetown, George Washington. That's just again because of that locality. But generally, I'm applying in the Northeast. Again, that has to do with being close to home and just kind of the general climate and the culture of the cities that I like to be in and are more accustomed to and want to be around.
Yeah, I also like not from anywhere near New York State. I guess I wasn't really geographically tied anywhere. I spent most of my childhood in Tennessee, technically, but I went to boarding school all throughout high school across the country, like in New England, um, and then college in New York, and now living in Maryland. But I think I sort of most identify with the state of New York just because that's where I went to school in undergrad. I wanted to go to RPI. It was a great experience, and I spent so many years working as an EMT, like within the local capital district region, and just doing different things in that area and doing research at local hospitals. So I feel most connected to the New York region, both because of like my experiences and just the network I've sort of built. So I'm more than likely going to be applying to a lot of New York schools just because I'm sort of an in-state New York applicant. But that's my reason. With that being said, like kind of like Hope said, there's so many different regions of the country you might be drawn to for various reasons, whether that's home or your connections, things like that.
Jonathan, you want to talk about your list?
Yeah, so I'm also a big Northeast guy, New York schools, Jersey schools. I'm from Jersey, by the way. And also, at least the one tiny bit of difference is like I have family in Maryland and California, so I'll be also looking through those schools as well. So for me, personally, like the way I'm choosing my list is based on like proximity of family more than it is like the prestige of the school.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I'm so glad that you shared that because, it really is a personal decision, the schools that people apply to, and they have their reasons for applying. And for that reason, we don't analyze it in any way. We just want to support people in where they want to be for their reasons. Next question. How many approximately apply to dental school from RPI? We get between 1 and 2 every year. Is it recommended for pre-med students to use their AP credits for introductory science courses, or do medical schools not recommend this? So every medical school is different. They have different requirements of what they will accept and not accept. It's really rare to come across a medical school that will not accept AP credit. More accept it than don't, but it does vary from school to school. So I will say that there might be some, very few, even if it's rare, there are some that won't. More often, what we see are those that won't accept community college credits. And the reason for that is if people are trying to dodge difficult courses at their own institution and taking it at an easier school. Medical schools are just kind of like on the lookout for things like that. But because of the pandemic, courses that were taken during the pandemic at a community college, those are almost always accepted. Online classes are another big one that I see a lot that medical schools won't accept. But as far as AP credits go, like almost every single one of them accept that. And it's really, really common for our students to come in with AP credit. It's not unusual whatsoever. And we have an amazing advisement team that in the School of Science, in the School of Engineering, that work with our students with the AP credits and the community college credits that they come in with to make sure that we can accept as many as possible and give them credit for the work that they have done. What's the average GP? Oh, yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead,
yeah, I
Jonathan.
just wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Please.
Yeah, personally, I would recommend always taking the class even if you have AP credits. I know like people's financial situation is very different. So it varies from person to person. But I think the one thing that you're really gonna gain from taking like a biology class in college compared to taking it as an AP class is that the pacing of the class is a lot different than it is in high school. And that rigor and that time management will truly help you like learn and understand the material a lot better so that when you have to review it for the MCAT, it's not like you're 5 years behind and it's more like you're 2 or 3 years behind. And all the people that are pre-med typically enjoy going into like TAing or going into iPersist. So chemistry for me, I took it my first semester, my freshman year. But because I was a mentor, I've been sticking with it for a while. So the concepts that, you have to sit down and review, it just cuts a bunch of that review time in half because you've been exposed to it for so long. Compared to like if you were to take an AP class, right, you wouldn't be well accustomed to it, and then you would have to basically reteach yourself everything. And if you're trying to do it straight, like try to go to med school straight after undergrad, that might be a whole nother month or 2 months just re-reviewing content.
That's a really good point, Jonathan. Thank you for mentioning that. Mohammed or Gina, do you have anything to add in terms of AP credit?
I do, and it's less about the AP credit, but more about like the transfer. So it kind of like goes in the whole bubble of like AP transfer credits, like basically taking a class that isn't at your home undergraduate institution. Especially if you want to like from more the biomedical engineering pre-med perspective, if any of you guys are interested in that. The major, like the credits load for the major itself is one of, if not the highest at RPI. So depending on if you want to take a gap year or not, or like what your course load or how you want to manage that, you might have to take a class over the summer just to sort of accommodate, even when it comes down to like, oh, there's like scheduling conflicts and I can't take this class like next semester, but I need it for a following class or to even progress in my degree. So kind of being smart about what classes you declare AP credit for or transfer in. That's definitely something that you should work with Hope very closely. This is what I did back my freshman sophomore year when I transferred a class in. Again, it's not going to like be like a tick on your application. There's not going to be like, oh, why did they transfer this class in from the medical school admissions perspective, but it is something that you want to be smart about and keep in mind, especially if you want to pursue biomedical engineering, that the major like credit requirement is pretty high. And so you might have to sort of make that adjustment and definitely to work with Hope really closely if that is something that you have to wind up doing.
Thank you very, very much. That's a really good perspective from a student's point of view of whether you should transfer in the AP credit or not and transfer credits. Thank you guys. Next question. What's the average GPA of an RPI grad that gets into medical school? This changes every single year. It's based on the crop that comes through. I can give you the range. The range I think is a lot easier to talk about, and that's between 3.3 to 4.0. We do have students that apply from RPI that do have a 4.0 GPA. So I think it's easier to talk about the range than it is the actual average because that changes every single year. Can you talk about your experience managing the workload of biomedical engineering and pre-med? Jonathan and Gina, you're up.
Do you want to take this first or you want me to talk about it first?
I don't care.
So as Gina mentioned before, the course load is very difficult. I think typical degrees are about 128 credits. Just to graduate with your undergrad degree, I think for BME pre-med, it's 132 it's 134, sorry, 134. And that's if you don't want to do anything else. So I'm also minoring in public health. So that's like another 4 classes or 2 classes I have to take. In terms of like the difficulty, it's your traditional biomedical engineering kind of route, like doing all of those classes, except all of your free electives are going to be pre-med courses. So, or Bio 1, Chem 2, Orgo 1 and 2, Biochem, Sociology, and Psychology. In terms of like the rigor of balancing the engineering classes and doing like the science classes, I do find it a little bit difficult because it's just two sides of your brain where one is really focused on like the math section, like doing the math, because we do have to take like multivariable calculus, we have to take linear algebra, differential equations, and also balancing that out with our harder, science classes like biochem, Orgo 1, Orgo 2. The workload is manageable. Like I am able to do all my classwork, succeed, and do the clubs and do the things that I enjoy, um, because of like the way I manage my time and the way that we have such good resources around us, to help transition kind of from your freshman year into becoming a college student. That it's possible. It might not be for everybody, but it is significantly more difficult. And I believe that med schools do recognize that people that come in with a biomedical engineering degree, with the quote unquote lower GPA, they understand kind of the multifaceted kind of skills that we have as an engineer.
Thank you very much. Gina, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to elaborate on what you said earlier about the AP courses and sort of stressing that you take those intro classes, even if you might have AP credit. When you take those classes your freshman year, you take the intro bio, you take the intro chem, even if you have those AP credit transfers in, taking those classes and kind of like reviewing, but also learning the extra step that you might not learn in your AP classes in high school that go beyond that scope. You also learn how to study in college. You learn how to manage your time. And if you get that foundation with your freshman year courses and topics that you're already familiar with, when you go to take your engineering classes starting your sophomore year, on top of your intro engineering analysis class your freshman year, then you go into your BME specific courses like biomaterials, bioimaging, and instrumentation. You know how to study for a college coursework load in a college-like class, that you're not learning how to study, you're really truly learning the material. And then on top of that, you really have to enjoy engineering and kind of that way of thinking. It's a different way of thinking. You're not just learning about the cell and how it works and all the cell machinery, but you're learning about the engineering design process, how especially from the biomedical engineering perspective, how your body works as a whole, as a whole system, as a unit, from the biomechanics of how like your elbow bends to why the muscle and why the material that your muscle is made out of works the way it works, and why it has to be designed in that specific way to work within the whole system, right? So you really have to enjoy that course load, but also have that really strong foundation in learning how to study and time manage to be able to really thrive. And I think it is very possible and is very rewarding. And I actually didn't even come in as a biomedical engineering major myself. I psyched myself out of it coming in as a freshman, and by the end of my freshman semester, my first semester at RPI, I was like, I'm here for a reason. Why don't I pursue it? And I did, and I never looked back. And it's I think one of the greatest decisions I ever made was to pursue that dual I wouldn't say dual major, but that path. And I definitely encourage it. And if it's for you, don't psych yourself out of it like I did. If it's something that, even if you have a little bit of this is really interesting and I want to do it, I say go for it, because I think it's great. It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Are there other questions for me or for the panelists? Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. It was a true pleasure spending the evening with you. Thank you very, very much to my panelists. It is an honor to work with you guys and serve you. And I'm so excited for all of the wonderful things that you're going to be doing in the healthcare field. Thank you again for joining us. Again, my name is Hope Shuttleworth. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. Reach out anytime. I'm available for meetings for accepted students as well. Well, thank you all again. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Best of
Thanks,
luck
Hope.
to everybody.